working on this 2011 Vauxhall Astra. DPF light is on, as you can see, and the problem here, we have a few fault codes. You've got the fuel rail pressure, immobilize I'm not bothered about. MAF sensor, yes, could cause limp mode because that's what the car is in right now. What we're going to do is eliminate things one by one, and that is we're going to start with the full diagnostic scan and clear. So if I turn the ignition off, there we go, turn it back on, and then if we do a clear, yes, it may clear sometimes, but that doesn't mean it's cleared it properly. So it says no fault codes. However, on here, as you can see, I'm not even turning it on, and it says DPF is full, and you can see the thingy flashing. If I do a read code, it'll read it again now. Well, nothing. Okay, so if we turn the vehicle on, in this case, let's have a look. So it still says DPF full. The engine management light has gone, but it will come back in a second because the DPF light will trigger it. And on here, it might not come on straight away. It'll take, so it says nothing yet, but in a second it will pick it up. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a DPF regen, and the way to do it is you can go into special functions, but I'm not bothered about that right now. So if we come back out, I'd rather do it this way. Here we go, hot functions, and you then go into the DPF, which is this one here. Sometimes it kicks you back out no matter how hard you try, because the soot content is so high it just will not accept it. So what you can do is do a DPF reset and then do the DPF regeneration. However, in this case, I'm just gonna get cracking with it and see what happens. Your engine temperature has to be quite midway, probably 80 degrees plus, otherwise it won't do it. So we'll just go with variant 2. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but we'll just click that one. Let's just see what happens. Okay, so it's just telling us what we need to do and what we don't. Okay, that's fine. Yep, it's not in gear. That's fine. So right now, there you go, it's increased the rev itself without me putting my foot on. However, if it doesn't like it, it will kick me back out straight away, and I'll have to reset the DPF and get cracking that way. And Vauxhall, as we all know, is very common for smoke and DPF problems. In a second, we will see a lot of smoke. We'll just let it warm up a little bit. Afterwards, I'm sure it'll kick a lot out. So it's increased the revs more. And the revs are staying there now. So far nothing's been kicked out as I'm expecting it to, but it will. I always say keep an eye on the engine temperature, because sometimes these Vauxhalls you can't trust, it'll just overheat. So it's a good idea to keep your eyes on the temperature, because that sort of rev is quite high, but it's reasonable depending on the weather. If the weather's very hot, I do recommend you take notice, because you can overheat the engine. On here it will give us the DPF status and the percentage it's done it. Sometimes it stays 0 for a long time, and then suddenly it'll say finish because it doesn't update it on there. Again, machine for machine varies, but that's where we stand right now. I can see quite a bit of smoke more. I don't know if you can see it, but from there, if you look closely, there is quite a bit of smoke kicking it out. I don't know if you can see the blue smoke. It's common for Vauxhall. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. Again, another 4 bad cars besides Vauxhall is Audi, VW, Seat, Skoda. They are the worst diesel engines you can ever buy on this planet. They're very common for these problems. They all have DPF issues. I think your top 2 good cars, personally myself, if you were to get, is BMW and Merc. Yes, true, they can go wrong, but not as common as these other cars that I've said. We keep an eye on the engine temperature. Everything's good so far. DPF regen is at 3%, which is good news. It's counting. As far as I know, on most vehicles, especially on these, it goes up to like 40, 50, maybe 70%, and then it will just then go into a cooling phase. In other words, kind of cooling the engine down, letting it come back to normal temperature, and yeah, and then it will reset the DPF itself automatically. I do recommend the bonnet being open because, as you can see, I don't know, from this distance I can see quite a lot of heat, and this kind of vanishes into thin air. It's also good for the engine, so I do recommend the bonnet being open. And if I press the menu button on here, we've still got the same message, DPF light flashing, coolant in is average, which is good. On here it's 24%, and I can smell a lot of fumes, so yeah, we'll just let it finish and do its job, and hopefully that sign should go and the gentleman can get the full power back on the vehicle. The DPF has finished, gone into the cooling phase, all back to normal. The light is still on, so what we'll do is go into the DPF reset here. Sometimes it may do it after the regeneration itself, but on this occasion it looks like it didn't. So what we'll do, that's fine, continue, turn the ignition off, which we'll do. Here we go, and we'll wait for a few seconds, and then it will tell us to turn the ignition on, and that's where we'll turn it on. And yeah, there was quite a lot of smoke around the back, as you saw earlier. Here we go, turn the ignition on, and it's performed it successfully, which is good news. And then if we look on here, the only problem we have is the bonnet being open, which is fine, and it's not flashing like before. If you remember, the DPF light was flashing, so in this case it's not, and we'll turn the engine on and see what happens. So if I put my foot on the clutch and turn it on, there we go. No more DPF light. And if I get rid of the bonnet, there we go, nothing on there that screams and says needs a service. But then again, DPF is never guaranteed, because this is something that may just come back in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. It's just a very common fault in all diesel cars. In petrol, yes, it's common as well, but you've got the O2 sensor that packs in because of heat and power and pressure. On these it's common, but you know, if in about an hour's time maybe it does come back, maybe it doesn't, maybe in a year, maybe 6 months. It just depends how you drive it. And I always recommend, if you can do a motorway once a week, you know, your revs being around about 3,500 RPM, you know, doing your 70 miles an hour, because you get fresh air into the radiator and stuff. But yeah, jobs are good in.